is very interesting. Let's go over the situation. We're opening the map. So friends, yesterday was an impressive day in terms of advances. Based on the numbers, I can tell you it was probably the biggest advance in a single day since the spring of 2022. Since spring 2022, we simply haven't seen this kind of pace. Yes, about half of the gains happened in one sector of the front, where the Ukrainian armed forces experienced a local collapse. However, I'll say this. All of yesterday's advances were important, because aside from the local collapse east of Mirnograd, the Ukrainian forces also lost a major fortified area yesterday. But let's go over everything in order. We'll start from the north and gradually move south. So we begin with the Sumy direction. There were advances in two areas near two villages. First, near the village of Belovody. The advance there was a solid 3 kilometers, and the area that came under control near Belovody was nearly 4 square kilometers. As you can see on the map, the Ukrainian forces are now only present on the southern outskirts of the village, and it's clear they won't be able to hold on here for long. In the coming days, the village will come fully under our control, and from there, the advance toward Yablonevka will begin, if we move south. Plus, toward the west lies Vodolagi, and as you can see, there was some advance there yesterday too. Yes, smaller, not 3 kilometers, but about 1.2 kilometers. Still, progress is progress. Thanks to these movements, Vodolagi is now semi-encircled, and the total advance in Sumy Oblast for yesterday amounted to 4.8 square kilometers. A good result. Let's move on. Next is the Lyman direction. There were advances here as well, again in two sectors. The first, we advanced and entered the village of Redkodub. The advance was 1.5 kilometers. The second sector, it's poorly shown on the American map, so let's switch to a different one. The second area is near the village of Kolodiazi, or rather north of it, right here. The advance there was 1.5 kilometers deep and about 1.5 kilometers wide, forming a kind of square. The total area that came under control in the Lyman sector, combining the Kolodiazi and Redkodub sectors, was 4 square kilometers. Adding this to the Sumy advances, we're already at nearly 9 square kilometers. This advance is important because it marks the beginning of an operation to encircle and eventually take Kolodiazi. Right now, the village is blocked from the north and east. And some may ask, so what if we take the village? We take villages regularly. Well, here's the thing. This opens the way along the highway all the way to the city of Lyman. You can see it, right? Once Kolodiazi is taken, only one village, Stavki, will stand between us and Lyman. That's it. Let's move on. The largest breakthrough happened on the eastern flank of Mirnograd. Take a look. As I said at the very beginning, this is where a local collapse of the Ukrainian front occurred. The maximum depth of the breakthrough was 7.5 kilometers, and the maximum width was nearly 5 kilometers. A very impressive result. And we're not talking about just open fields. 2 full villages were taken, Mirolyubivka and Malinivka. They also shaded in Yelizavetivka, but we had taken that village earlier. They just finally acknowledged it. Now here's something important. Part of the Ukrainian forces didn't manage to retreat in time. That's the cost they're paying for orders to hold the line and not retreat. I'll now go into more detail about this breakthrough. What exactly happened and what comes next? How significant is this breakthrough? Well, just for context, this single breakthrough area alone resulted in 21 square kilometers coming under our control. Let me repeat that. 21 square kilometers. A 7.5 kilometer deep advance, a powerful result with far-reaching consequences. What kind of consequences? Well, considering we took both Mirolyubivka and Malinivka, and there are already flag videos from both villages, in the near future, we'll reach the key settlement of Novoekonomichene, and from 2 directions at once. That's not just a warning bell for Mirnograd, it's a blaring siren. You see, Novoekonomichene isn't just a village. It's a large urban-type settlement and essentially a defensive hub guarding Mirnograd from the east. Without controlling Novoekonomichen, there's no chance of taking Mirnograd. Well, with Mirolyubivka taken, the path to it from the south is now open. And if we follow this road, we'll reach the village of Mykolaievka. And beyond that, across the Kazenyi Torets River, lies Novoekonomichene. Alternatively, we could take this route, avoiding the river crossing altogether, though I suspect both routes will be used in parallel. That's the southern situation. From the east, with Malinivka taken, the battles for the settlement of Mirn will begin. It's a very small village, just about 30 houses, and that's all. So the fighting for Mirna won't last long. And after Mirna, that's it. There's also a direct route to Novokonomikna. In short, the Ukrainian armed forces suffered a local collapse here yesterday, which significantly worsened their position. But the trouble didn't end there. Another major setback occurred on one more critically important section of the front, the Bohatyr area. Although it's no longer really the Bohatyr area, since the Ukrainian armed forces lost the village. And you know, for the Ukrainian command and military experts, this came as a shock. The village was large, well fortified, and they expected to hold us off here for at least a month and a half. At the very least, for 1 full month. But guess how long it took our forces to capture it? 1 week. From the moment we entered the first street on the southern edge to the final clearing of the western part, which was completed today, only 7 days passed. Yes, the maps, both Ukrainian and American, still don't reflect this. They show only 50 to 60% of the village as under our control. But even Ukrainian military analysts are now writing that the battle is over. And they're right. Why did this happen? Why did the Ukrainian forces flee? Actually, they didn't even flee. They were crushed before our troops even fully entered the area. Let me remind you, prior to the storming, the village was pounded into dust with heavy bombers and artillery. By conservative estimates, the Ukrainian forces lost around 300 soldiers even before the assault began, due to bombings and artillery strikes. And with a bloodied garrison, they simply couldn't hold a half-ruined village, so our troops essentially just moved forward, clearing house by house. And importantly, in addition to capturing Bohatyr, our forces yesterday, first of all, came right up to Otradne, where the remnants of the Ukrainian forces had retreated from Bohatyr. You can see the red line on the map. That was the front line the day before yesterday, and everything beyond it, marked in red, shows the ground we took yesterday. And as you can see, we are now just 1 kilometer away from Otradne. Secondly, no sooner had Russian troops taken Bohatyr than they pushed forward along the highway, advancing 1.5 kilometers beyond the village. In short, this is a serious defeat for the Ukrainian forces. The total area taken under control in this sector alone was 9.2 square kilometers. Add that to the 21 square kilometers near Mirnohorod, 4.8 in the Sumy direction, and 4 square kilometers near Lyman, and we get over 39 square kilometers in 1 day. So now you can see why Zelensky and his handlers are so desperate to negotiate a 30-day ceasefire. It's because the summer offensive has barely begun, and they're already suffering such massive setbacks. What will things look like at the end? And do you think that's all? No, there's more. Yesterday, there was also confirmed progress westward in the Komarivske direction. Control was expanded between Volny Pole and Novoselivka. The advance was 2.5 kilometers, and the total area taken under control was 6 square kilometers. But perhaps one of the most important updates came from Chasiv Yar. Here, all high-rise residential blocks in the city center were fully cleared. On the American maps, they didn't mark all of this in red, as you can see, but the central neighborhoods of the city are now completely under our control.
Velkommen til Andersen og Martini. I dag skal vi ud og køre i lidt af et ikon inden for bilverden, en Mini Cooper SE.
This gives hope that the long saga of Chasiv Yar, ongoing for over a year, is finally nearing its end. With the city center fully in our hands, only 2 southern residential districts remain to be cleared, and those don't even have high-rise buildings. And during that time, we'll have a chance to push up from the south, from the direction of Kostiantynivka. And then the offensive will head straight for Kostiantynivka. That will mark the beginning of one of the most decisive battles of the summer military campaign, the battle for Kostiantynivka. To sum up, yesterday was a day of collapse for the Ukrainian armed forces. The total area gained by our army in a single day was 45.8 square kilometers. Again, in just 1 day. With advances like this, should we agree to ceasefire talks? I think the answer is obvious. The Turks have announced that everything is ready for negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. The talks will be held behind closed doors, with security guaranteed. Trump has stated that he expects fairly good results from the upcoming negotiations between Russian and Ukrainian representatives in Istanbul. The initial list of U.S. observers, Whitcomb and Kellogg, has been supplemented by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The U.S. hopes Putin will attend the talks in Istanbul. If he does, Trump will come too, according to Kellogg. CNN confirmed that Trump's attendance at the talks in Istanbul remains an open question and largely depends on whether Vladimir Putin takes part. That is, Zelensky's participation doesn't seem to concern anyone. What's happening now is a coordination of the potential meeting between Putin and Trump and what outcomes such a meeting might have. Clearly, if it happens, it won't just be for show. It will be for results. No one knows what Thursday will bring, sources say. The topics of the talks in Istanbul will include long-term settlement and the actual situation on the ground, including the issue of territory, according to Deputy Foreign Minister Ryabkov. Everyone is also talking about Zelensky's recent statements, including his claim that he can negotiate with Putin, and that the National Security and Defense Council's decision supposedly didn't forbid him,